The plumbing in Dylan's place is shot, so he'll be staying here for a bit. Get the guest room ready. I nodded and turned to make the arrangements. Chloe, your husband is so obedient. I never thought you'd have him trained so well. He's just a dog. I left and drove to the hospital to see my dying father-in-law. It's time to write a new will, one that leaves everything to me. You know me, Harrison. For me to do it this way, I'm being merciful. It was our third wedding anniversary. I waited for 2 hours at the Michelin star restaurant I booked, but my wife never showed. Then her call came in. Nathan, Dylan's back in the country. I'm with him. You can sleep alone tonight. I drove home by myself. A text from an unknown number buzzed on my phone. It was a photo in the dim, moody lighting of a cocktail lounge. My wife, Chloe Sterling, was locked in a passionate kiss with Dylan Vance, the ghost of her past. Her friends were cheering, clapping like it was a spectator sport. The next message was from Dylan himself. Nathan, you're just Chloe's pathetic lapdog. She'll always love me. If you have any self-respect, you will just disappear. Oh, really? In that case, you can all go to hell together. 7 years ago, I was just a junior department head at Sterling Enterprises. Back then, Harrison Sterling, the patriarch of the Sterling family, had played kingmaker to break up Chloe and Dylan. He'd strong-armed the Vance family, offering them a lucrative deal they couldn't refuse on the condition that they send their son abroad. I could guess Harrison's reasoning. Dylan Vance, a trust fund kid with a notorious reputation, was a reckless playboy. Harrison would never entrust his only daughter, his entire legacy, to someone like that. Harrison's health was already failing. The Vance family was opportunistic, known for their shady business dealings. Chloe, spoiled and arrogant, had zero business acumen. If she had married Dylan, the Vances would have devoured the Sterling fortune the moment Harrison was in the ground. His precious daughter would have been left with nothing. But I knew my opportunity had arrived. From that day on, I began a relentless pursuit of Chloe Sterling. My colleagues thought I was insane, mocking me for punching so far above my weight. For a time, I became her loyal dog at her beck and call, fetching whatever she desired. Chloe seemed amused by it all, never rejecting me outright, but keeping me on a leash, a plaything to command. I was, of course, completely subservient, catering to her every whim. Finally, a year later, she got drunk again. I'd lost count of how many times she drunk herself into a stupor since Dylan left. I carried her into her penthouse and laid her on the bed. As I turned to leave, she grabbed my arm. Her eyes were hazy, but her voice was unnervingly clear. Stay with me. I froze, not daring to move. She yanked me down with surprising strength. I lost my balance, collapsing on top of her. A fire ignited inside me, incinerating all reason. We kissed wildly, tearing at each other's clothes. The night was a blur of fierce, desperate passion that only ended with the dawn. When I woke, my back was covered in the angry red scratches she'd left behind. And just like that, we were together. Night after night of tangled sheets and raw intensity. The very next day, Harrison Sterling summoned me. I expected a termination, a threat. Instead, he promoted me to department manager. From then on, I stopped hiding my ambition. I became ruthless, a sharp-edged tool for Sterling Enterprises. I eliminated competitors, closed impossible deals, and worked myself to the bone. Soon I was promoted to vice president. I was Harrison's weapon, his attack dog. Under our joint leadership, Sterling Enterprises boomed, becoming the dominant force in New York City's corporate landscape. Those rivals who used to mock Harrison for not having a son to inherit his empire now bowed their heads when I walked into a room. They feared me more than they feared Harrison himself. Over the last 2 years, Harrison's health has deteriorated rapidly. He knew his time was short. He knew that once he was gone, no one at Sterling would be able to control me. But he also knew he couldn't get rid of me. In our aggressive expansion, we made too many enemies. Without me to steer the ship, his company and his precious daughter would be torn apart by vultures. So Harrison did the only thing he could. He had me marry his daughter. For the next week, Chloe didn't come home. One evening, I was in an exclusive lounge in Soho, entertaining a major client. After seeing him off, I checked Chloe's Instagram story and saw that she was at the same venue. I hesitated, then decided to go up. As I approached the private room, I could hear her voice dripping with disdain as she spoke to her friends. Chloe, you haven't been home in a week. Doesn't your husband ever give you trouble? Chloe scoffed. He's just a dog on my family's payroll. Why does he have to question me? If my dad hadn't interfered back then, I would have married Dylan. You think I'd ever look twice at Nathan? Now Dad's so sick, he won't last much longer. The minute he's gone, I'm kicking Nathan to the curb. Her friends giggled, their laughter laced with mockery aimed at me. Through the crack in the door, I saw Chloe nestled in Dylan's arms. He was feeding her a cherry, their lips meeting as he passed it from his mouth to hers. She stroked his face. Once I dumped Nathan, I thought, how would you like to be the new VP of Sterling Enterprises? His response was another deep, wild kiss. I'd seen enough. I turned and walked away, my expression a mask of calm. A few days later, Chloe finally came home. She brought Dylan with her. When Dylan saw me, his eyes were full of undisguised provocation. He extended a hand. You must be Nathan. Thanks for taking care of Chloe for me while I was away. A power play, staking his claim in my own home. I looked at his outstretched hand and smiled, a chilling, humorless expression. Think nothing of it, Dylan. Looking after Chloe is my duty as her husband. I gripped his hand, my knuckles tightening around his slender fingers, in applied subtle pressure. You, on the other hand, I trust you had fun abroad these past few years. His face shifted, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. He pretended not to catch my meaning, pulling his hand back and wrapping his arm around Chloe's waist with forced casualness. Chloe, this husband of yours is interesting. Chloe shot me a look of pure disgust. Nathan, cut the passive-aggressive crap. The plumbing in Dylan's place is shot, so he'll be staying here for a bit. Get the guest room ready. I narrowed my eyes. For how long? For as long as I want, she caught herself, her annoyance flaring. Who are you to question my decisions? This is my family's house. He'll stay as long as I want him to stay. I nodded and turned to make the arrangements. From behind me, I heard Dylan's lowered voice. Chloe, your husband is so obedient. I never thought you'd have him trained so well. He's just a dog, she replied dismissively. A short while later, I came out of the study with a stack of files. Chloe and Dylan were flirting on the sofa. I walked straight toward them. Chloe, there are a few urgent projects that need your signature. Since Harrison's health declined, the title of CEO had passed to Chloe. It was purely nominal. She was too busy with her social life to care about the company's affairs, but certain high-level documents still required her signature. I often brought them home for her to sign. Clearly annoyed, she snatched the papers, scribbled her name without a glance, and tossed them back at me. I didn't linger. I took my cue and left. Sitting in my car, I looked at the documents in my hand. Tucked between the project contracts were two other forms now bearing her signature: a divorce settlement and a legally binding agreement waiving her right to inherit any family assets. I picked up two attorneys and we drove to the hospital. Halfway there, a notification popped up on my phone. The security feed from our bedroom showed Chloe and Dylan tangled together in the bed I share with my wife. They were utterly shameless, not even considering the possibility I might return. Harrison Sterling had been better than for some time, but he seemed to have a spark of energy today. I heard his booming voice as I approached his room, chatting with his nurse. I asked the lawyers to wait outside and entered. The nurse was peeling an apple. Seeing me, she quickly set it down and respectfully excused herself. Nathan, you're here. Dad, how are you feeling? I sat where the nurse had been and picked up the half-peeled apple, continuing the task. Harrison sighed, though his tone held a hint of resignation, as if he'd finally accepted his fate. What can I say? This old body of mine doesn't have much time left. I handed him the peeled apple, my voice flat. Dad, I came today because there's something important we need to discuss. He took the apple but didn't eat it. What is it? Is there a problem at the company? I slowly pulled out my phone and played the video from the security camera. You should see this for yourself. On the screen, Chloe and Dylan writhed on our marital bed. The scene was obscene, their words filth. Harrison's hand trembled violently, and the apple tumbled to the floor. His face went white, his breathing ragged and sharp. That ungrateful child, he choked out, slamming his fist against the bed rail. His body shook with a violent coughing fit. I stood and patted his back until the coughing subsided. He grabbed my hand, his eyes desperate. "Nathan, don't be angry. I'll give you an explanation for this, I promise." I pulled my hand away, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Dad, you're in this state. What kind of explanation can you possibly give me? Do you think you could just pay Dylan off and send him away again, like you did 7 years ago? Or do you actually believe Chloe still listens to a word you say?" Harrison's face turned a shade of deep purple. His eyes narrowed to slits. I'd worked with him long enough to know he was on the verge of exploding. "Then what do you want?" he ground out, each word deliberate. I looked at him with cold pity. "It's time to write a new will, one that leaves all of your property and assets to me." His pupils constricted. He stared at me as if seeing my true face for the very first time. The air in the room grew thick and still, the only sound the cold, rhythmic beep of the heart monitor. After a long moment, Harrison let out a dry, rasping laugh. His voice was laced with bitter irony. "Nathan, you've been waiting for this day for a long time, haven't you?" I didn't deny it. His eyes were like daggers. "Nathan, you started at Sterling Enterprises as an intern. It's been almost 10 years, hasn't it? I took you from being a nobody and made you the VP of my company. For years, I've trusted you unconditionally. I put everything I hold dear into your hands. And this is how you repay me?" Trying to play the sympathy card as if that would work now. I had planned this for a long time, but back then I was insignificant in his eyes. He'd probably long forgotten who I truly was. I had no patience for this. "Dad, you know as well as I do that I control nearly every aspect of the company now. I have a dozen ways to bleed your fortune dry. We're expanding our overseas operations. I could transfer every last asset offshore. Your board members, they answer to me now. If it comes to that, I won't be sitting here discussing it so politely. You know exactly what would happen to your precious daughter then. If you write the will now, I can guarantee she'll be taken care of for the rest of her life. Financially, at least." My voice was low and even. "You know me, Harrison. For me to do it this way, I'm being merciful." Harrison's hands clenched the bed sheets, his knuckles white. He was grinding his teeth. Finally, like a deflating balloon, the fight went out of him. His energy seemed to evaporate, leaving him frail and defeated. He knew I was telling the truth. He stared blankly at the ceiling, lost in a long, silent struggle. Time ticked by. I waited, perfectly patient. I knew he had no other choice. He seemed to shrink, his eyes filling with a deadened haze. "Fine, I'll do it." Hearing his consent, I wasted no more time. I opened the door and brought in the 2 lawyers who had been waiting. With them as witnesses, Harrison Sterling drew up a new will, precisely as I had instructed. I reviewed it meticulously several times to ensure there were no loopholes before handing it to my legal team. After it was done, I leaned down and whispered a single sentence into my father-in-law's ear. He lost control instantly. He pointed a trembling finger at me. "You!" His eyes were filled with a hatred so profound he looked ready to tear me apart with his bare hands. He let out a choked gasp, coughed up a mouthful of blood, and collapsed back onto the pillows. Unconscious, I calmly called for the doctors and nurses. Harrison Sterling remained in a coma, clinging to life for another month before finally passing away. I was there to see him one last time. I stood by his bed as the doctor pronounced him dead. Chloe threw herself onto his body, her cries of "Daddy" echoing in the sterile room, raw and heartbreaking. But the man who had ruled a corporate empire and sheltered her for her entire life would never answer her again. I turned and left without a word. The funeral was 5 days later. The sky was a grim, overcast gray, a steady drizzle falling on the procession. The shareholders, executives, and key business partners of Sterling Enterprises were all in attendance. A sea of black umbrellas crowded the cemetery, the atmosphere heavy and somber. Dressed in a black suit with a white carnation pinned to my lapel, I stood at the front of the crowd. Chloe was there, leaning heavily on Dylan for support, her face a portrait of delicate, tear-streaked grief. The guests exchanged puzzled glances, their eyes darting between the 3 of us. It was obvious that the relationship between Chloe and Dylan was more than just friendly. In this circle, affairs were common, but for Chloe to so brazenly bring her lover to her own father's funeral was shocking. Everyone knew I was not a man to be trifled with, and with Harrison gone, they sensed a storm was brewing at Sterling Enterprises. Still, this wasn't the time or place for gossip. After the pastor finished the eulogy, the guests came forward one by one to lay flowers on the grave. I walked slowly to the headstone and placed a bouquet of white chrysanthemums on the freshly turned earth. "Don't worry, Dad," I murmured. "I'll take care of the empire you left behind." With Harrison's funeral over, it was time to deal with the other two. During this period, I hadn't returned to the house I shared with Chloe. She and Dylan were rekindling their old flame, and she had no desire for me to be there, spoiling her fun. I used the time to replace every member of the Sterling family security detail with men loyal only to me. The day after the funeral, I drove to the luxurious mansion, a convoy of cars behind me. The property was in Harrison's name, which meant it was now my property. I decided I would sell it. I have no use for tainted things or tainted people. I sat in my limited edition Bentley and watched as my personal assistant directed the security team to storm the house. Chloe Sterling no longer deserved to live here. Within minutes, she and Dylan were unceremoniously thrown out onto the manicured lawn, their personal belongings tossed out after them. Chloe was practically hyperventilating with rage. "What the hell do you think you're doing? This is my house!" she shrieked at the stone-faced guards. "Who gave you the nerve to treat me like this? Do you have a death wish? You're nothing but dogs my family keeps." Her family. With the old man gone, these men knew where the real power lay. No one was foolish enough to believe she was still the untouchable princess of Sterling Enterprises. They had all endured her abuse for years, treated like servants, yelled at for the slightest perceived infraction. Now they felt nothing but satisfaction. With me backing them, Chloe was nothing. Seeing that her usual tirades had no effect on the guards, who wouldn't even meet her gaze, she finally spotted me sitting calmly in my car, watching the show. She scrambled to her feet, her beautiful face twisted in a furious snarl, and began pounding on the car window. "Nathan, you bastard! You're nothing but a dog we took in. How dare you do this to me? You just wait. I'll have you fired. I'll leave you with nothing." I watched her, a genuine smile spreading across my face. The woman was a fool, completely unable to grasp her new reality. The only one who would be left with nothing was her. Dylan, looking disheveled and furious, chimed in. "Nathan, this is Chloe's home. What right do you have to throw us out? Don't forget who gave you everything you have." I gave him a dismissive, scornful glance, not bothering to reply. I turned to my assistant. "Take Miss Sterling back to the old family estate." My assistant nodded. Two guards immediately grabbed Chloe, who was still screaming and struggling, and bundled her into a car. Dylan, momentarily forgetting his anger at me, scrambled in after her. I had no more interest in the pathetic scene. I closed my eyes and spoke to my driver. "Let's go." On the way, my phone buzzed incessantly with calls from Chloe. I declined them all. In all our years together, she had rarely ever called me. Now she was desperate. A flood of voice messages followed, her voice a venomous hiss. "Nathan, I am the legal heir to Sterling Enterprises. You just wait. I'm calling a board meeting tomorrow, and you'll be thrown out of my family's company for good." "Oh, really?" The next day, Chloe stormed into the Sterling Enterprises headquarters with Dylan and two notaries in tow. She burst into my office, her posture radiating arrogant defiance. "Nathan, after what you did yesterday, you really think you're in charge now, don't you? I'll have you know, if you hadn't been such a good little dog, sucking up to me, my father never would have promoted you. But I should thank you. You worked hard for my family, and because of you, the company is stronger than ever. Now that everything is stable, Dylan will be taking over your position as VP. We don't need a rabid dog like you anymore. The Sterling fortune has nothing to do with you." She covered her mouth with her hand, a cruel little laugh escaping. "But don't worry, for all your years of service, we'll make sure you get your final paycheck." I remained silent, watching her with an amused expression. My calmness seemed to unnerve her. Her voice sharpened. "Nathan, after the board meeting, you'll be thrown out on your ass. People from the gutter belong in the gutter. You can wear a suit, but you'll always be nothing but my family's dog. I finally smiled. Chloe, I said, my voice dangerously soft. We've been together for years. We've spent countless nights tangled in the same sheets. If I'm a dog, what does that make you? Her face turned a sickly green. For a moment she was speechless, but she quickly recovered, a cold smirk replacing her shock. Nathan, are you trying to provoke me? She lifted her chin, her eyes filled with contempt. Did you really think I ever loved you? You were just a replacement, a stand-in? Do you honestly believe you can compare to Dylan? She linked her arm through Dylan's, pressing herself against him. Only Dylan is worthy of me. Dylan, glowing with triumph, wrapped his arm around her waist and shot me a challenging look. Nathan, if you know what's good for you, you'll walk away now. Don't wait to be humiliated in front of the entire board. I rose slowly from my chair, smoothing out the non-existent wrinkles in my suit. A cold laugh escaped my lips. Oh, is that so? Well then, let's not keep them waiting. With that, I walked out of the office. Chloe, not to be outdone, hurried past me, the sharp clicks of her heels echoing down the hall. In the boardroom, the company's shareholders were already assembled. The chairman's seat at the head of the table, once Harrison's, was empty. Chloe walked to it and sat down as if it were her birthright. She scanned the room, then nodded to the notaries standing behind her. One of them stepped forward and produced a document from his briefcase. Clearing his throat, he announced, according to the last will and testament of Mr. Harrison Sterling, all shares of Sterling Enterprises, along with all real estate and other assets held in his name, are to be inherited in their entirety by his daughter, Miss Chloe Sterling. This will has been verified and is legally binding. He held up the will for everyone to see. I glanced at the date. It was from 3 years ago, our wedding day. A cold, bitter laugh rose in my throat. Harrison Sterling, that calculating bastard. He had privately promised me 10% of the company's shares in his will, asking me to look after Chloe and the company if anything happened to him. It was all a lie, an empty promise to ensure my undying loyalty. He was playing me from the start, always wary of the outsider. For years, I'd poured my blood, sweat, and soul into this company. And to them, I was just a dog they could discard at any moment. Chloe's eyes danced with triumph. To all the shareholders of Sterling Enterprises, today, as the majority shareholder, I officially announce the termination of Nathan Pierce from all his positions within this company. She shot me a contemptuous look. From this day forward, Dylan Vance will assume the role of vice president. I expect you all to give him your full support. The room was silent. No one spoke. These shareholders had worked with me for years. They knew me. They knew I wouldn't go down this easily to a spoiled, clueless woman. But Chloe, blinded by her victory, didn't notice the unnerving stillness in the room. She turned to Dylan, her voice soft and adoring. Dylan, darling, after all your years abroad, your skills and vision are 100 times better than Nathan's. You're the perfect person for this job. It's what everyone wants. Dylan's face was flushed with excitement. Of course, Chloe, my abilities speak for themselves. But honestly, as long as I'm with you, being VP doesn't matter. I just want to be by your side always. Oh, Dylan, you're so sweet. A wave of nausea washed over the room. The shareholders shifted uncomfortably. I couldn't stand it anymore. I cleared my throat loudly. Chloe snapped back to the present, a faint blush on her cheeks. Her embarrassment quickly turned to anger. Nathan, you've been fired. What are you still doing here? Get out. Security. Get security in here and throw him out. She called out several times, but no one responded. The doors remained closed. She finally realized something was terribly wrong. Her expression soured. I tapped my fingers lightly on the polished surface of the table. My assistant immediately understood and handed me a file. I spoke, my voice calm and steady. I'm afraid, Miss Sterling, that your wishes will not be granted today. What do you mean, Nathan? Chloe demanded, her face paling. I passed the file to my legal team. One of the senior partners, a formidable man with a reputation for corporate litigation, presented the documents to the room. No one except for Chloe and Dylan looked surprised. I said, Chloe, if I'm not mistaken, that was dated 3 years ago. However, 1 month ago, you willingly signed a document waiving all your inheritance rights. So tell me, What does any of this have to do with you? Her smile vanished when she saw her own signature on the waiver. Her face went blank with shock. Impossible. I never signed anything like this. I looked at her as if she were a child. Sudden comprehension dawned on her face, followed by pure rage. Her eyes, fixed on me, were practically shooting flames. Nathan, you devious bastard. You tricked me into signing it. Dylan stood frozen, his own dreams turning to ash. Chloe lunged for the financial reports on the chairman's desk, tearing them to shreds in a fit of fury. This is a fake. It's not valid, she screamed. Her tantrum was met with stony silence. After a few moments, reality seemed to sink in. She suddenly burst into laughter, a wild, unhinged sound. She stared at me, her teeth gritted. So what if I waived my rights, Nathan? The sterling fortune would never go to an outsider like you. And she was right. Even without her as the heir, the board could have appointed another distant sterling relative, a puppet they could control. I sighed and gestured to my lead attorney. He stepped forward with another document. In a clear, authoritative voice, he read aloud. According to a new will, handwritten and signed by Mr. Harrison Sterling, all shares of Sterling Enterprises, all real estate, and all other assets are to be inherited in their entirety by Mr. Nathan Pierce. He paused for effect. This will has been notarized and is legally binding. It was signed 1 month ago. Chloe's notaries immediately stepped forward to verify the document. Their faces confirmed its authenticity. A collective knowing murmur went through the shareholders. This was the move they had been waiting for. The expression on Chloe's face shifted from anger to sheer unadulterated terror. According to the law, when two valid but contradictory wills exist, the most recent one supersedes all others. The moment my will was presented, hers became worthless. Chloe finally understood. She had lost. She had lost everything. With a primal scream, she lunged at me, her nails bared like claws, ready to tear a chunk of flesh from my face. My bodyguards intercepted her instantly, slamming her down onto the conference table. "Nathan, I'll kill you," she shrieked. "My family was good to you. How could you do this to us? You ungrateful snake. You worthless piece of trash." I stared down at her, my voice laced with ice. Good to me? I worked my ass off, bled for this company, and your father's first will didn't leave me a single goddamn share. Is that being good to me? I spent 7 years groveling at your feet, being treated like your personal dog, only for you to jump into bed with Dylan the second he came back. Is that what you call being good to me? Chloe, your family was disloyal to me first. Don't you dare lecture me on betrayal. I leaned in close, patting her cheek with mock tenderness. Chloe, 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 after everything you've done, what do you think I should do with you? A flicker of remorse, or perhaps just fear, finally appeared in her eyes. She tried to muster a look of pathetic vulnerability. Nathan, husband, I was wrong, she whimpered. I was just confused. I'll never do it again. It was all my fault. Please forgive me. If you just let me go, I'll do anything you say. It was the first time in our entire 3-year marriage she had ever called me husband. How ironic. I looked at her with something akin to pity. Chloe, I have something else to tell you. Dylan has HIV. My words hung in the air. A shocked gasp rippled through the room. He's known for a while, I continued, my voice flat. He just didn't want to tell you. You can ask him yourself. Dylan was quickly restrained by security. The shareholders visibly relaxed. Chloe looked at Dylan, her face a mask of disbelief. Dylan's own face was as white as a sheet, his lips trembling too violently to form words. Chloe's body began to shake with terror, her voice cracking. Dylan, is he telling the truth? He refused to meet her eyes. He began to struggle wildly, trying to escape, but my guards held him fast. The answer was obvious. I took a medical report from my assistant, flown in from overseas, and threw it on the table in front of her. See for yourself. He was diagnosed over a year ago. He never told you. Chloe's trembling hands opened the file. The words swam before her eyes. A strangled cry escaped her lips and her legs gave out. No, it's not possible, she whispered to herself. Then she became hysterical, trying to claw her way toward Dylan, held back only by the guards. Dylan, say something. He remained silent. Chloe's hope finally shattered. Dylan, you bastard. You animal. I hope you're in hell. How could you do this to me? At last, Dylan dropped the act. Shut up, you stupid brat, he snarled. If it wasn't for your family's money, do you think I'd ever want a spoiled, entitled brat like you? I got this disease because of your father. He's the one who forced me to go abroad. If it wasn't for him, I never would have left. It's all his fault. He ruined my life, so I decided to ruin his precious daughters. It's only fair. What are you so afraid of, Chloe? I've had it for a while, and I'm fine. You love me, don't you? So what's the problem now? We can be the same. You should be honored, huh? Chloe collapsed, her eyes vacant, her expression catatonic. The room was deathly quiet, punctuated only by Dylan's manic laughter. After a moment, a flicker of life returned to Chloe's eyes. She turned to me, her face streaked with tears. Nathan, husband, please help me, she begged. I don't want to die. I'm still young. Give me the best doctors. I know you still love me. You wouldn't just let me die, would you? Her voice was filled with desperate hope. I stared at her, my face a motionless mask. After 7 years, my performance had been so convincing that even now she still believed I loved her. I stepped forward, grabbed a handful of her hair, and yanked her head up so she was forced to look at me. My voice was colder than the grave. Chloe, I've known about Dylan's condition for a long time. Do you really think the Vance family would have dared let him set foot back in his country without my permission? I arranged his return. Why on earth would you think I did it? Because I love you. 7 years ago, the Vance family, despite their ambition, was nothing compared to the might of Sterling Enterprises. That's why a single threat from Harrison was enough to make them send Dylan away. Now, compared to the corporate empire I commanded, they were less than nothing. With Harrison on his deathbed, I was the true power at Sterling. Did she really think Dylan could have just waltzed back into my life, into my home, without my express approval? It was suicidal. As for Harrison, all I had to do was tell him the truth, that Dylan had HIV and that I was the one who brought him back. The old man couldn't handle it. My revelations stunned everyone in the room, save for my inner circle. Their shock quickly morphed into a new, deeper level of fear. Chloe's mind finally broke. Why? She screamed. Why would you do this to me? You loved me. You spent 7 years worshiping me. How could you? Was it all a lie? Nathan, answer me. I let go of her hair and asked a simple question. Chloe, do you remember your old middle school classmate, Leo Miller? I glanced out the window as if looking back through time. It's a name I haven't used in a very long time. The color drained from Chloe and Dylan's faces. My name used to be Leo Miller. I went to the same junior high as Chloe and Dylan. They were the children of privilege. I was from a working-class family. My parents were divorced and I lived with my father. Chloe was the most popular girl in school, radiant and untouchable. Countless boys had crushes on her, and I was no exception. But I knew the chasm between our worlds was too vast to cross, so I kept my feelings hidden, a secret I held close. Sometimes in class, I would just find myself staring at her. That was all. But my quiet adoration didn't escape the notice of Dylan Vance. He found me fascinating, a new toy to play with. He started encouraging me to confess to Chloe, telling me that a rich girl like her, tired of all the other trust fund kids, might just go for someone like me. I was young and naive. I was a good student and confident in my looks despite my family's poverty. By his relentless encouragement, I took a leap of faith and wrote Chloe a love letter. To my utter astonishment, she wrote back. Her words were full of affection. I clutched the letter, overcome with a joy so pure it felt like I could fly. We began exchanging notes every day. I was drowning in the sweetness of it all. School became the only thing I looked forward to. One weekend, she asked to meet me at an abandoned construction site on the edge of town. I didn't think twice. I went, my heart soaring. But what awaited me was not a confession of love, but a nightmare that would haunt me for the rest of my life. Chloe and Dylan were there, along with their entire clique. They laughed at me, calling me a pathetic loser who was out of his league. They told me to look at myself in a puddle and see how disgusting I was. Chloe said that being liked by a poor kid like me was humiliating. It hurt her reputation. The contempt and disgust in her eyes is something I will never forget. That day, my dignity was stomped into the mud by a pack of rich kids. They broke 3 of my ribs, and Chloe herself took a piece of broken glass and carved more than a dozen slashes across my face. I was left for dead, but somehow I survived. My father reported it to the police and threatened to go to the media, but Harrison Sterling showed up at our door. He offered my father $1 million in cash to sign a non-disclosure agreement. He threatened to have us both killed if a word of it ever got out. I was in the hospital for 3 months and the medical bills were piling up. My father's hair turned completely white in that time. To survive, we had no choice but to take the money and stay silent. The day I was discharged, my father died, consumed by grief and stress. He was distracted. On his way to pick me up, he was hit by a truck and killed instantly. My mother took me in. She moved us to a new city and changed my name to Nathan Pierce, her maiden name. With the settlement money, I had plastic surgery to erase the scars. I became a new person. My mother hoped I could forget the past and start over. But how could I ever forget? How could I forget the feeling of my pride being ground into the dirt? The look of scorn in their eyes, the ugly, threatening face of Harrison Sterling, the image of my father's broken body. The seeds of hatred took root in my heart and grew into a forest. In the years that followed, I focused on only 2 things: studying relentlessly and gathering every piece of information I could find about Sterling Enterprises. Know your enemy. Eventually, through a combination of hard work and strategic maneuvering, I got my foot in the door at their company. I climbed the ladder from the very bottom. Every step a calculated move, every promotion a victory. I hid my true self for a decade, waiting for the perfect moment to exact my revenge. Chloe's eyes were wide with disbelief, her voice trembling. You're Leo Miller? That's impossible. How could it be you? She and Dylan stared at me, their faces masks of pure terror. They couldn't comprehend that the powerful man now controlling their fate was the same poor boy they had tortured and left to die all those years ago. My voice was a low, chilling whisper, as if rising from a tomb. 20 years ago, you broke my bones and sliced up my face. You are the reason my father is dead. Now you tell me, what should I do with you? The fight was gone from Chloe. This time the fear was real. I gestured for the guards to release her. She fell to her knees with a thud and crawled toward me, begging, "Nathan, Leo, we were just kids then. We didn't know what we were doing. I was wrong. I was so wrong. Please, please spare me. Just think of me as a dog." Dylan, on the other hand, completely snapped. He knew his family had abandoned him. He knew Chloe was finished. He knew he was going to die from his disease. With nothing left to lose, his fear turned to rage. "Nathan, Leo, huh? My only regret is that we didn't kill you back then." "Go on, do it. I'm already a dead man. Kill me." "What are you waiting for?" I kicked Chloe away and gave an order to my assistant. "Send them both to the old estate. Let them tear each other apart." They were dragged from the room, one sobbing for mercy, the other screaming curses. The shareholders all turned to look at me, their expressions a mixture of awe and terror. A poor boy, a 10-year plan, a complete corporate takeover. The sheer audacity and ruthlessness of it was breathtaking. They feared me, but more than that, they respected me. I sat down in the chairman's seat and straightened my back. "From this day forward," I announced, my voice resonating with authority, "this company begins a new chapter. I expect every one of you to work with me to take it to even greater heights." The room erupted in spontaneous, thunderous applause. One of the shareholders was the first to speak. "Mr. Chairman, perhaps it's time the company had a new name." The motion was passed unanimously, and just like that, Sterling Enterprises was no more. It was now Pierce Industries. I didn't spare any of the others who were there that day. Their small family businesses were ants compared to my corporate elephant. I started with the Vances. Within a month, their company was bankrupt. The others followed soon after. I erased them from the New York business world. As for Chloe, she went insane. All her rage, with no way to reach me, was turned on Dylan. She stabbed him 13 times, one for every scar he had helped put on my face. He died on the spot. I gave the Vance family a generous sum of money and persuaded them to sign a letter of forgiveness for Chloe. Instead of the death penalty, she was sentenced to life in prison. I'm a man of my word. I promised Harrison I would ensure his precious daughter was taken care of for the rest of her life, and I have. After all, I've given her a new home with the most advanced security system in the world.